he could provide them at what cost. So that may be a first step, is for you to invite this consultant or another of your choosing to come down and meet and start that process.
Okay. Is his scope limited to parking structures?
No, and again, if you still have it, you can forward it. No, they do parking reports, they do parking garage assessments, they do parking area studies, and they have a bio several pages long of cities that they've done combinations of all of that for. And again, I'm sure not the only one in the country, but this particular firm is out of Indianapolis.
I'm really happy pursuing that and giving DFI and ourselves time to try and find some alternative funding for that. Okay. I just want to make sure we know what the next step is, Mayor, if we're going to keep this moving along. Is that agreeable? Let's look for some grants.
We can move up. We can move on here. Let's move on now to this next topic. And the preliminary report.
That should be
We've got we're going to have the Chapter 40 Frankfort Code of Ordinances review, suggested revisions. Two chiefs could come forward, please. And Randy, want to introduce it and let the chiefs take it over? Sure. It's been requested for quite some time, and put a lot of man-hours into it, and we have a synopsis on this report.
Chapter 40 of the Frankfort Code of Ordinances rides along with Chapter 37. Chapter 37 governs city personnel.
Next question. Do you all have a copy of this for us to review?
I sent an email to the, I can make you a copy of mine.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have a
sure.
copy if
I have a
possible.
copy of the synopsis.
Synopsis.
Not all the detail, which is, because that's not ready yet. But
Sure.
I was going to go through all that.
Okay, well, you don't have to do it now, but before the end of the day, you can get a copy that's that. Oh, great.
And I can go make some copies of this later.
Chapter 40 is the provisions related to civil service, which is the police officers and firefighters. And we've known there's some things in there that are outdated. A lot of it's really old. Some things that are in the ordinance that didn't make a lot of sense from a practical standpoint. So Chief Bossich and his staff and Chief Will White and his staff have pulled together a list of recommendations and about things. And it's not just about the civil service process. When I say civil service process, I'm talking about the appointment of policemen, the appointment of firemen, the promotion of policemen, and the promotion of firemen. There's also other sections in that chapter that need to be cleaned up a little bit. And with that, I can turn it over to the chiefs and let them go through. Chief Bossich, you've already given a copy of yours, so I guess we can start with you, and Mark's getting a copy of his. The next step in this process, just to kind of jump ahead, is if there's some general consensus that the recommendations they're making is good, then it's to start pulling together the revisions to Chapter 40 and putting them in an ordinance format. And one of the goals, in addition to changing the content of Chapter 40, one of the big goals is to make it more readable and more understandable so that employees that are affected by it or the public can look at it and make some sense out of it. It kind of jumps back and forth between police and fire a lot in its current format, and so we'd like to reformat it and kind of break it out so we have a section dedicated to police recruits and a section related to fire recruits. And instead of having one section that jumps back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So With that, I'll let Chief Boston speak.
And the two, police and fire, would it be the true promotion? There are some similarities, but there are some differences, because we are different. So, we did not focus on trying to match things up to what the chief will have, because he has different needs and I do. As Randy said, you know, where we are is he's going to be formatting all this in the proper form. There's more we'll have to review proposed ordinance for before it comes to you for. Just a brief background. We had promotional committee meetings, I'm calling it, for lack of a better word, 2 or 3 over the past several months. We had some with just chief officers, we had some with a cross-section of departmental members, meaning various ranks, various crews, and tried to, and have incorporated many of their recommendations into what we had rewritten.
You all met over the last couple of months, you said?
No, let's see. Started out last February, March, I think, and then one in the summer, one in early fall. And what you have there on the sheet that I gave you, and I think that someone's going to apply to Chief Wilbur, is we're not going to go through all the detail changes. There are a lot of little, you know, wording changes or minor things that I'm not going to touch on tonight, because I'm only going to focus on looking at things that we have there regarding fire. And this kind of will follow the synopsis that I gave you. May not be entirely in order. But our first change is to recommend that the civil service board members in the civil service section be compensated in the amount of $100 per day for meetings, examinations, and interviews. They have operated for years with no compensation other than a free lunch. And they are the only sitting board that does not get compensated. And if you're interested, I've got all the various boards and what they get paid, how much. So $100 a day for their services is very minimal, especially compared to the other boards, but at least it's something to give them some incentive for their time.
I don't think that I received a paycheck for when I was on the Board of Ethics. I think we just got a free lunch when I was there. And Parks Board, do we pay them for?
No.
Okay, so there are several park boards that do not get paid.
But code enforcement does, planning commission does, board of zoning adjustment does, and architectural review board does. They all get paid by them.
And one point about the civil service board, when they meet, they usually meet for a period of, 6 to 8 hours. In fact, this week they're interviewing police applicants for basically 3 8-hour days. And they get a fine lunch from Gibby's.
Well, but I mean, the same argument can be made for the Board of Ethics. I mean, we
Sure.
when the Board of Ethics does it and holds a hearing, it's a long process.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely, I understand.
Next, under the original appointment approved section, we have in there that per the KRS, it already exists, but we should have in our ordinance too, that no person shall be appointed to a member of either department that if he or she is over 50 years of age. We already have in here the minimum age is 21, but we don't have the maximum.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, keep interjecting.
No, go right ahead.
How many candidates do you see in the recruiting process that are over 50? Is that a big issue?
No, because we advertise it that way. It must be at least 21, not over age 50. I have had, I believe, 2 in the past 14 years that we had to notify. I'm sorry, you're not eligible, but only these 2 out of hundreds of applicants. Again, under fire recruits, we have added that fire applicants for the physical agility test, for fire applicants, that test shall be the candidate physical agility test, which is also KRS. We've been doing that already for about 3 years now. But that is the prescribed test for fire, so we need to spell that out. We have that the tests, we're changing that previously it said test selection, certification, and security shall be responsibility of the Civil Service Board. We're changing that from Civil Service Board to the Police Chief and Fire Chief, because the Civil Service Board does not do that, never has. And it's something they realistically cannot do. We take care of the test. Each applicant shall receive a minimum score of 70% in order to continue in the process. That exists now. We're adding the wording or the minimum score set by the provider of the validation test. We use a professional testing company, and they'll come in and say, we realize your minimum is 70, however, based on the validation of this test and the test taker's results, we recommend that your minimum score be 74 or 68 or whatever. So we would like the ability to use what is recommended by the professional service company. We've added that the oral interviews may be held by the Board of Civil Service with either the board or a combination of board members and fire-related professionals. And again, this is something we have done before when we could not get one board together. Two civil service board members and a fire chief of another department. So we'd like that ability written in there that we can do that. The relative weight of the test or the testing process is written there to be effective upon adoption of this ordinance, which certainly we hope to have done in March if at all possible. Because we are now in the process of beginning the recruit process and soon the promotion process.
I have a question about the age, the 50 years old. I mean, we continue to employ firefighters, that we would do.
Yes, you just cannot be appointed as initial appointment as a recruit firefighter.
Okay, so somebody applies, they moved here from another city, because they're working across the state, they've got 30 years of experience, and they're 52, you hire them.
No.
And what's the logic behind it?
State law.
That's the state law, okay.
If they, once they reach 50, they probably should stay with the department.
One thing on the statute is that it's referred to as KRS 95.450, but it's actually KRS 95.440.
Oh, is that in the synopsis?
It's not yours.
It's in mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've got it in mind. I thought it was. Let's see. We want to eliminate what currently exists, and this is going to apply to Chief Whipple's process also, in giving additional credit for certifications. It's going to make the testing process much more fair, and we all agree that. I should have interjected that Mr. Goins, Randy, Chief Whipple, and I had about a 4-hour meeting last week to go through all this stuff. We're all on the same page here. That's the why we're making the recommendation. Well, as an example, currently it's written that upon receiving a passing score, additional credit for current certification shall be applied to the applicant's total score as follows. For firefighter applicants, if they're a certified firefighter, they get an additional 4% added to their score. If they're a certified EMT, there's another additional 4%. If they're a paramedic, additional 8%. And then similarly with patrol officers, if they get experience, they get 4%, I believe.
Now, stated certification is 4%, op certification is 8%. That would remove that, but for my case, I'm seeking an accelerated candidate process that would examine already certified officers. So really, it would be moved.
What's the harm in moving?
Pardon?
What's the harm being moved?
On having the extra certification on the initial application. They're getting the extra
I feel
points.
like I'm missing something here. I mean, it seems like there's clearly value in having somebody who's already certified.
There is, but it's actually touched on in the civil service portion. That's where they need to get that credit. In the civil service board interview, which is worth 50% of the total score, the civil service board needs to say, hey, this guy's already a firefighter or he's already a paramedic. So their scores should reflect that, as they do now. So in fact, they're getting double credit for it as it is now.
I think that's the point. When you get a candidate that comes in that's got those certifications, the civil service board's ranking them higher and give them more points. And then you're adding even more points on later, and it's okay, they score better, they come to the top of the list, but we're pushing, maybe candidates, we're pushing them so far toward the top that maybe candidates that lack in other areas are getting to the top of the list for no reason other than the fact that they've got a piece of paper. And so, you know, like I say, it's okay, it's probably good practice that they get moved up the list, but not twice. And from my experience with the board, they highly weigh POP certification when they're interviewing police officer recruits, or firefighter certifications, or EMT or paramedic certificates when they're interviewing candidates for firefighter recruit. So it's basically, from my standpoint, I just think they're getting double credit now, and it's maybe pushing people to the top of the list that are keeping you from getting to some very good people. And that, I don't know if that's...
And another way to look at it too is, with the additional points that someone with certification gets, we're not getting necessarily the best candidates. Yeah, they have the experience, but we can cite examples of a person who's not certified, but they scored very high on the written score. They have an excellent background as far as references and everything else, but they get bumped down 3, 4, 5, every how many spaces due to the fact that a guy who maybe scored low on the test got all these extra percentage points. If he's a firefighter and a paramedic, he gets 12% added to his total grade. It's out of balance. So we think all in all, if we do away with that extra percentage point, it's going to make a much more fair candidate field.
I understand where you're going from.
Let the Civil Service Board determine the applicant's experience and certifications.
Right. And I'm not sure this is entirely in order, but it's not sheet you got there.
Do you have the sheet we have in front of us?
Do I have it? Yeah, but I'm going through that, my actual draft of the changes. And I know it's pretty closely matches.
Okay.
For instance, my next item is to mention was that the certification list currently reads shall be in effect for a period of 1 year from the date of certification. We want to add or until a new list is established.
Or what?
Or until a new list is established, which we actually currently do anyway, but it's not in ordinance. Now is a good example. Our firefighter recruit list was established, I believe, last June, and we exhausted it by January. So we have no eligibility list right now. So we have to go ahead and establish a new one, even though it hasn't been a year. On the other hand, if we have an eligibility list that's got 30 eligible applicants on it, we may not want to test next year. We may want to hold that test, that certification list as being valid for 2 years, because it will save us a lot of time and money if we have new candidates on it. Make sense? Next I have applicants, this is another addition, applicants who have been given a conditional offer of employment and subsequently are denied appointment due to unsatisfactory background or polygraph or drug screen results shall not be placed on a subsequent eligibility list for a period of 5 years. And as you know, we had some candidates who received a conditional offer. The offer was withdrawn. As a matter of fact, we have one that's applied again, even though his offer was withdrawn just a matter of 2 months ago. He's applied again. So we'd like to have the ability to say you're not eligible to apply because we wouldn't accept you last time. Next we have that we may choose from any of the applicants having the highest 5 scores. Right now it's written there's the highest 3 scores. 5 will again give us a much more, it'd be much more advantageous to us to be able to choose from the top 5 or the top 3. And again, we've seen this time and again. Next, we get into promotional appointments. We want to add the sentence, applicants must have a minimum score of 70% on the written exam to continue in the promotional process. They still have to have a 70% overall total score with all components of the test, but if they don't successfully complete the first phase, which is written, then they can't continue the process. Another change is, currently it says that a member of the fire department must serve 2 years in the next lower rank before he will be eligible for promotion. We want to change that to 1 year, with the exception of a firefighter, meaning that's his rank. He has no rank as a firefighter. With the exception of firefighter, he must serve at least 48 months before being eligible for promotion. That gives us 1 year as a probationary period, and 3 years serving as a firefighter EMT, getting all the basics under his belt before he's eligible to become the first level officer. And this is pretty well across the board supported by the people that have been involved in those discussions. For other ranks, it would remain 12 months. Once they become sergeant, then if they want to move on up to lieutenant, captain, whatever, it's only 1 year between ranks. But the first step would be 4 years. Also adding that no member who's been suspended for 3 or more days, a day in our case meaning a 24-hour shift, prior to testing will be eligible for promotional exam. No member who has received an evaluation with an overall rating of unsatisfactory or needs improvement within the prior 12 months will be eligible for promotion. We also want to add that professional standards or certifications may be required as prerequisites for promotions for rank, provided that they're given adequate notice. In other words, to say that to be a whatever rank captain, you must have an accepted certification. That's what we're talking about. Department chiefs will recommend one of the top 3 candidates from the list. The Board of Commissioners for promotion. The candidate can be passed over for the same promotion a total of 3 times. Must receive in writing the reasons the candidate has been passed over.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
On those, if there is a recommendation, can you still provide the commission the top 3? Because ultimately the commission's got to make the decision on who is getting that promotion or not. If, for example, the commission, and hypothetically for whatever the reasons, would disagree with one of the chiefs on that, I mean, it would be helpful to have those other 2 names there to know where the test is. So essentially you have, here are the 3 candidates, here's the one who's recommended for that promotion. That provides the commission with more information in terms of making a decision. Do you foresee issues with that?
Potentially, yes. In that,
Politicizes it.
yes, if we say, here are our 3 top candidates, which one do you want to promote? I mean, I'm simplifying this.
Sure.
We don't feel it should be up to the commission to pick the best candidate. The chiefs know the best candidate. You want to touch on that, Chief?
Well, I think that's probably how it was designed to operate in the beginning anyway. And I think as time went on, the decision was delegated to the department head. You submit a name. Like I say, the only rule we have now, I mean, outside of whatever the suggestion is in the state statute for those for the civil service, it provides for a rule of 3 promotions, but it's not mentioned in our ordinance anywhere. So maybe previous to that, I can see where that. And there may be some old stories of where that has occurred.
And for, I don't know that I've got a dog in this fight, but I'm going to go ahead and weigh in. From my perspective, I've got some concerns. I think civil service programs were designed to keep politics out of administrative decisions and to let administrative managers make the decisions, interview the staff, and I think introducing a concept where that decision is taken away from the administrative side and made by the elected body would create some issues.
I mean, even now.
If you're gonna do that, I would think you should interview all the candidates
Well, sure.
yourself, so that you know, but I don't think that you're gonna be able, in a 1-hour interview, to make the kind of decisions that these guys can make as heads of those departments that have worked with those people. And with all due respect for that concept, I think it's promotions are an administrative decision, and if you do anything to introduce the political process into that it's Pandora's box, and you better be careful how far you open it. That's just my 2 cents.
And I will say, and I was going to say this in my presentation, of all the recommendations, most of these recommendations came from the troops, but of all of these, if there was going to be one hot button issue, it would be the chief recommending a rule of 3 for promotion, because it would, you get somebody who, they can complain about, good old boy system, and you're only promoting your friends and that kind of thing. But that would be the, of all the changes, that's really the only head scratcher for my folks.
Just from my own personal education, as the ordinance is written now, how many names do you recommend? Or how many?
Number 1 on the list.
Number 1 on the list is you recommend. But could the commission go in and say, no, we don't like that, we're going to choose number 2 on the list? Is that allowable to ordinance? I'm just trying to.
I don't think it's allowable the way
I'm not saying it's
the
best
ordinance is
practices,
written
but it's
now.
what I'm saying is.
Pardon?
I think it's number 1 on the list.
Yeah, the way the ordinance is now, no. So if, Snidely Whiplash scores number 1 for sergeant, I kind of like old Snidely, but, he causes the commission a lot of problems. You're going to have to promote him if I recommend him, the way it currently is.
I don't actually think it's written anywhere in the current ordinance that number 1 is promoted. It's just been our practice because that's what's most defendable. If we want to skip number 1 and go to number 2, we've got to have a darn good reason, defensible reason, and we can skip number 1. And I guess we've been fortunate we haven't been, in all candidness, yeah, we both promoted people that we wish we could have picked number 2 because we know their background or whatever, they may have scored highest, but they weren't necessarily the best person we promoted.
Well, my department still suffers the effects of some poor promotions.
I think the other thing that can happen to take into consideration is you've got a list that's going to be good for a year, and you could have somebody sitting on top of the list that had gone silent, that had had some disciplinary issues, that was displaying a total lack of leadership in the year since the list was created. And so some flexibility there to be able to, and I'm not saying that, I think it would be a rare occasion when the chiefs didn't take the top person, because I think that they trust the process and they're tweaking the process to develop even more trust in it bringing the best candidates up. But, determining who can be good managers is a difficult process. But, it really is. There's a probationary period there, but just a good test taker doesn't necessarily make a good.
Well, and that was one of the discussions that we had in both of our promotional processes. You don't necessarily assess that person for their capability for leadership. You're judging them on their knowledge of skills or tasks and how they performed in their current job in the past year, which may not involve any tangible leadership qualities that you can rank. So, you have no flexibility the way it is now. You take number 1 on the list and that's it.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Waller, and then Commissioner Haley.
How many staff do you have right now, Chief Sausage?
I believe I have 80.
How many of your employees are privileged to this?
And that's including me down.
How many employees have been privileged to this information so far? Per your meetings you said you've had.
None of them have been privileged to what we're going over right now, this what we're considering a final recommendation. I'm still planning on meeting with the troops before we put it in final ordinance form to go over all this in detail.
You didn't have a promotional committee meeting?
I'm sorry?
Promotional committee meetings you said you had?
Yes, what I said was the input that we got from those meetings, most of that has been incorporated into what we're going over now. Maybe not all of it. And we found a lot of things that need to be tweaked that we have not discussed with them. But yes, my intent is to go over with each crew what we're recommending as final.
So at this point, none of them have been?
Not for this final document, no.
Okay.
But you are gonna go and meet with each crew, you said?
Yes.
Great.
I won't pass anything until it is.
Yeah.
Official mark.
Yeah, I guess I would just consider this a draft, and I'm gonna need to hear from the troops.
Yeah, I think this was all about presenting some ideas and getting some feedback. And just like most of these other processes, it's a development thing that has several phases. And we're just taking that first step by now to get some ideas on the table and to, obviously, if there's things that we don't feel like you guys will support because of your comments tonight, then I think the chiefs will need to go back and rethink it and see if they can come up with either